We discussed and we'll circle back on in this segment polling that indicates in just a few short days, Vice President Kamala Harris's approval has soared from where it was previously. All it took was people being introduced to her really for the first time in many ways, in the way that we're currently seeing, for Americans to have a much more positive view of her, and for the whole presidential race to be rocked, where now I would put the odds of her winning greater than losing. Very exciting. And we saw this even anecdotally. I've been telling you my anecdotes of people in my life who I normally never hear talking about politics, who probably, if I weren't going to really encourage them to, I wouldn't say force because that would sound a little aggressive, but really explaining the importance. If it weren't for that, they probably wouldn't have voted with the previous matchup. Very unfortunately, despite the stakes being the same. But now are saying they're excited about voting for Harris. So there is another example of anecdotes. And these are even more interesting than my personal ones because I'm not talking about Trump supporters. These are people who identify as previously supporting and who were planning on supporting in November before this shakeup for Trump, who are now saying that they're considering Harris.
Just north of Detroit in Macomb County, Michigan, a concert, a Woodstock tribute band. It's where we find Laura Chidsey, who says she once considered herself a hippie and is now a retired Defense Department employee.
You are a Republican.
Yes.
And in 2020, did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yes.
2016 also?
Yes.
And now this year, had you planned to vote for Donald Trump?
Well, I did. Now, tables might turn.
With Kamala Harris?
Yes.
So you're not sure?
Not sure. So I gotta research a little more.
But you like Kamala Harris?
Yes, I do.
Macomb County, where nearly 900,000 people live, has gone for Donald Trump the last two presidential elections, and Barack Obama for the two before that. In the last 20 presidential elections, Republicans have won 10, Democrats have won 10. So we took a tour of this key county to see what voters make of the dramatic developments in the presidential race. What we saw was a lot of reflection. John Hebert is a retired Marine, a Vietnam War veteran, a political independent.
Before Kamala Harris got in the race, were you undecided or did you know who you were going to vote for president?
I was definitely leaning towards Trump before she got in.
And now how do you feel now that she's in?
I'm waffling a little bit.
So we're seeing in data, this is not just anecdotal, already a shift in Harris's direction. And to put it comparatively, a shift in the Democratic direction from Biden jumping on the ticket to Harris becoming the presumptive nominee, right? Comparing Biden to her, Biden-Harris, if you compare, she's already making up a lot of ground, which, like I said, is very thrilling to observe. So that's true in the numbers. But hearing it from people directly is also really exciting. It's like what we talk about with Nikki Haley Republicans, who these may also have been, where they would say, if Nikki Haley were the nominee, they'd be voting for her. But if Trump's the nominee, they're voting for Biden. This was back when Biden's on the ticket. Now you have people saying they were planning on voting for Trump or leaning Trump, who now are going for Harris. And I think as we get more and more polling on independents, we're going to see her making just huge leaps and bounds with independents or with swing voters. I just do need to say before going on to other videos that I don't understand. I know many of you, if you watch shows like this one, you would have a hard time conceptualizing being an undecided voter, being a swing voter in this political environment, because it's not a matter of, I just need to learn more about the distinctions between their policy stances and the nuances of their healthcare approaches and how they plan on economically stimulating things in a way that doesn't right, taxes. But that is not the world we're in now. It seems like we're in just this world where the gap between the priorities and the records of the two sides, regardless of who's on the Democratic ticket, it does matter if Trump is or isn't because he's uniquely bad. But whoever the Democratic Party put up was going to be way better than Trump. And just those values differences, the governance difference is so clear that it does feel so strange for you to still not exactly know. I don't know how that happens. My assumption is maybe people just don't keep up as much with politics, or they just have very different axioms. And so I'm not judging the political race in the way they are based on what would impact them. But regardless, hearing from those people that Harris as a candidate completely changes their formula or the outcome of their formula, and their formula is clearly very different than mine, is great to me. And I think one thing is, for some people, regardless of how bad you think the age-related impacts were for Biden, or I should say it this way, we can observe the age impacts, but how bad you thought that was for his ability to be president, which, as we've seen, he's been a really great president. But however much concern you had about that, there are definitely people I've talked to who their perception caused them to feel like they absolutely want to vote for Biden no matter what, even if they agreed Trump was absolutely deranged. Again, I fundamentally disagree with that being your stance. But if the fact that now the other options, not just more rational, not just clearly more effective in governance, not just for democracy, but is also a next generation type leader, then that could be another thing, bringing some of these people over. If you are not already, yes, you, unless you are already, then not you, but anyone else, can you please make sure you're subscribed to the channel by clicking that subscribe button? Makes a huge difference. Easy, free, but I appreciate it greatly. Back to the video. So, very exciting. Then you just have some fun. These aren't undecided voters, but people discussing the race.
She doesn't have to go out there and sell sneakers or Bibles, you know?
Yep.
All she did was announce that she's running, and they said, where do we sign up?
And I think she gonna give Trump what he needs. He ain't ready for this one.
The level of energy is higher, and we just got to keep this up. We only have 100 days left. We can run through the finish line. Don't slow down, but keep going.
That's right. I really do believe our chances are better than, I should say, our chances of winning are better than not winning, which is really tingly, exciting feeling to feel. I really like it. But that doesn't mean we do anything different in our work ethic. Sitting on our bums is not how we guarantee that that's the outcome. It's going to be close no matter what. Unless something absolutely wonderful happened. But it's going to be close. And thus, let's make sure victory is manifested. You have Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss saying this, because what I also want to illustrate to you is not only is the contrast between Harris and Trump yielding very good results in how it's impacting people for us, you also have the attacks, but the justified attacks against Trump's running mate, who was a bad choice. Bad choice. And his issues, his political damage that he's bringing with the statements he's made in the past, is also furthering the Democratic interest. And that comes in the form of people like Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss saying this about J.D. Vance.
Now, Neil, with respect, this isn't a couple of mischosen words by J.D. Vance. This is a theme. He's a MAGA shapeshifter. He doesn't appear to have any real political beliefs except for this deep-seated denigration of women. He has voted against and stood against exceptions for rape and incest to abortion. He's voted against safe and legal in vitro fertilization. He's insulted women trying to start a family. And then he just seems to get mean when pushed on it. I mean, how hard would it have been to say to Jennifer Aniston, I empathize with your journey towards starting a family, and here in the United States, we want to make it easier for women to have kids with a child tax credit and with subsidized childcare. But no, he calls her disgusting. This is going to be an ongoing theme because it fits into a pattern that Republicans have with disrespect for women. I mean, look at the top of the ticket. Donald Trump bragged about sexual assault and was then found civilly liable for sexual assault. So now, Neil, with respect...
Exactly. Correct. Remember, as I said before, one of the votes, the groups, the identity categories, however you describe it, that Trump was having issues with already. Even with Biden on the ticket, was women voters. And so for him to not only now be going up against a woman candidate, but to be going up against her, a movement with a far better record and stance on women's rights and just the way that women are spoken about being very fundamentally different, respected. And he's doing so with J.D. Vance as a running mate. He could have used his vice presidential pick to try. I wouldn't have believed that it made any difference in his policies, because it wouldn't have. But he could have pandered by trying to select someone who could shore up support there. But instead he picked someone who has this record of disparaging women. And most importantly, as we always have to remember, his record, his voting record, shows that to be true as well. And so that's just a really bad spot for Trump to be in. Young voters now much more excited about the candidacy of Kamala Harris. Women voters much more excited about the candidacy. And those two groups could make the difference, as well as so many different groups in our unified coalition of pro-democracy people. And so I do think Trump should be terrified. It seems that he is. He's back to just constantly bringing up the election might be rigged, the election might be rigged, which means he sees the writing on the wall. We should be excited about that. To further my points about good polling recently, the New Republic reports Trump loses it over devastating Fox News poll on Kamala Harris. The new poll, conducted July 22nd through 24th and released Sunday, found that Harris's approval rating had surpassed Trump's in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Michigan, four of the most crucial battleground states in this election. In Michigan, Harris was leading Trump in favorability by a whopping 57% to 49%. And that's favorability, not which person would you vote for. We looked at those already. Also very exciting stuff on that front. But just how favorable, because then if you see a candidate has much better favorability ratings, then the ground they'll be able to make up is presumably much easier and much more significant. There's more ground to make up, because if people already sort of like you, convincing them to go vote for you is obviously easier. And it goes on to talk about how Trump is very unhappy that this would be reported on. Fake news. Even Fox News is fake news. So there it is. Very exciting. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.